First of all, I'm going to put the hook in the vise. I want it so the shank is parallel to the table. We want to add some weight to this fly so it will sink. So I'm going to take about a 2.5, 3-inch piece of lead wire and I'm going to lead the hook. I'm going to put it up to the eye just a little bit and start wrapping. I want to wrap about 2/3 of the shank of the hook. And with my thumbnail, I'm going to pinch off the back end, run my thumbnail underneath the eye of the hook, and pinch off the front half. Now with my thumbnail, I'll just center that on the shank of the hook. I'm going to attach my thread now, just in back of the eye. And I'll cut all my materials on the top of the shank of the hook. That way I'll never cut my thread that's on the bottom. I want to anchor this lead now, so it doesn't slide as soon as the first fish hits it. And I'm going to wrap down and back several times, wrapping off the lead onto the shank of the hook on each pass. For the tail of this fly, I'm going to use bobs off in a guinea hen feather. I like using the black and white for the tail on this fly. Just going to take a few fibers off. I want to pull them 90 degrees from the stem, and then pull back down. They'll come right off. I'm going to bunch those together. I want this tail to be gap length past the bend of the hook. The gap is from the point to the shank of the hook. That's how far I want these to extend past the bend. I'm going to bring them up there and measure them so that they're gap length past the bend of the hook. I can see where my thread is. I'm going to switch hands now. Take one very loose turn over the top and pull towards me. Now I'll wrap to attach that in good shape. I want to wrap back all the way to the bend. How I can tell I'm at the bend is when I drop my thread. My thread should be at the bob of the hook, where it is right now. My tail is attached. I can trim off the butt ends of that feathers, or I can just wrap them down. It doesn't matter. It's all going to be covered over. Nobody's going to know the difference. For the shell back on this fly, I'm going to use a turkey tail feather. It's got the two-tone colors that I want. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to snip a little bit of this feather off. I'm going to take the tip of this and just even it off. I'm going to bring that up to where my thread is now and hold it in this manner here, right on the shank of the hook. I'm going to take one very loose turn over. I want this to end up on the top, flat, just like it is right now. Now I'll attach that in good shape. For my rib, I'm going to attach a piece of peacock herl, one single strand. I'm going to take the butt end of that white butt end and just cut that off. Right back where I am now. I'm just going to attach that. 4 or 5 turns. Now I'm going to bring my thread back up to just in back of the eye of the hook. My body of this fly is going to be a 4-strand floss. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to wet the end that I've got in my finger so I can keep it organized and all together. I'm going to hold that down at a 45-degree angle right against the shank of the hook and take one very loose turn with my thread. Pull my bobbin towards me and take 4 or 5 tight wraps to attach that floss. Now, wrapping over the top away from me, I'm going to wrap this floss and staying on the right hand side of my thread. I'm keeping that floss nice and neat and organized. It's called walking the bobbin. By walking the bobbin, it'll keep that floss nice and neat and all together and organized. Once I get back here to the tail, I'm going to take my single strand of peacock curl and take one wrap in back of it, and then bring it back to the back. Now I'm going to wrap forward. On my forward wrap, I'm going to stay at the left hand side of my thread to again keep that floss nice and neat and organized so I can wrap a nice smooth body. Back up here at the head, I'm going to hold that floss up with my right hand, straight up on top. Take my bobbin, drop it over the back with my left hand. Now I'm going to switch hands. Take my floss with my left hand, my bobbin back in my right hand. I'm going to put tension on the thread towards me. Pull the bobbin towards me. Now I can let go of that floss and take 4 or 5 turns all in the same spot to anchor it. Now I can lift straight up on my floss and cut it nice and close. I'm now going to wrap my rib, that single strand of peacock curl. And I want my wraps to be evenly spaced. When I get up the front, I'm going to attach it in the same manner. Drop my bobbin over the back, switch hands, tension on the thread, pull towards me. I can let go of that herl now and attach it with 5 turns. Cut the end off. Now I'm going to do my shell back. I'm going to pull that directly over the top, drop the bobbin over the back. I'm going to hold it there. I'm going to take 4 or 5 turns to anchor it. I want to tighten up on that shell back just a little bit. I'm going to pull it towards me. Tighten up. Now I can attach it even better. Now I can cut the remaining end of it off. I now want to add just a few legs to this. I'm going to use this hackle feather. And I'm going to strip some of that feather off and cut, leaving just enough to tie on. I'm going to take that feather down and hold that right next to the head. Take one loose turn over the top, then 4 or 5 tight turns to attach it. Now I'm going to take my hackle pliers and just grab the end of that feather with my hackle pliers. I just want a very few legs on this, so I'm only going to take 1 or 2 turns. And I'm going to tie this feather off again by holding it straight up, drop my bobbin over the back, switch hands, take my bobbin in my right hand now and pull it towards me, put tension on my thread. Now I can take those hackle pliers right off. And take 4 or 5 turns over the top of the tip of that feather to attach it. Now I want to cut the tip of that feather off. I'm going to lift up on it. I'm going to pull, grab it, lift up on it, open my scissors just a little bit, and go in there and push. The only thing I'm going to break and cut is what I've got my hands on. All those other fibers will stay there. Now using my hackle guide tool, I'll put that on my thread and bring the whole of that hackle guide up to the eye of the hook and pull all those fibers back and finish off my head nice and smooth. Now I can take the tool off. We have our head finished. Now I'm going to tie off my thread using my half-inch tool. I'll lay the tool on my thread, take 1 turn of my thread around the end of the tool, bring it up to the eye of the hook, and gently slide it off. Now I'll go twice around the tool, up to the eye of the hook, and gently slide that off. Now I'll lift up on that to lock it in good place. I cut my thread. Now I'm going to add a little head cement. We now have our finished Tellico.